So in this video we're going to be talking about the Rosenthal effect. What the Rosenthal effect is when a coach focuses too hard on one athlete at the expense of the other athletes within their training group. Well, sometimes it's known as the Pygmalion Effect. Pygmalion from Greek fiction, and he built a statue and then fell in love with the statue. Now I know guys thinking that's such a weird explanation to have for something that's going to be involved, usually talking around about teenage athletes, but that's just the name of the effect. Later on we got some more scientific research by Rosenthal, where we now call it the Rosenthal effect. And sometimes, and quite often, they do this without even realizing they are doing it. If you're doing something without realizing you're doing it, you're potentially affecting athletes negatively. If we don't know we are doing it, how can we then prevent that negative effect happening towards the athlete? How do we prevent regression in the athletes also? Now, what are the reasons for the Rosenthal effect? Quite often, it might be a case of the coach sees an athlete that they believe will make it. It's their protege. And naturally, you want to work with people who you think will achieve their goals. Or not necessarily their goals, but achieve goals that maybe you as the coach have set for them. Maybe they've got a talent that you see. So therefore, you try and nurture that talent. But sometimes that comes at the expense of other athletes who may be just as good. And sometimes what we perceive as being really good at the time might not necessarily be. And we neglect the athletes who actually do have talent, who may stay in the sport, because quite a lot of the time, those athletes who are talented now, as a teenager, as 16, 17-year-old, won't make it as an elite athlete when they were in their adulthood. Or maybe I should rephrase that. Quite a lot of the athletes who do well at world championships at a young age, in the junior world championships, aren't necessarily the athletes who then push on to become Olympic champions or world champions as an adult. They might still be around and they're still very good athletes, but they might not necessarily be the ones who win you the medals. Now, I've personally seen a lot of Rosenthal effect. Yes, I know that's very anecdotal, but when I've been with coaches, I've seen them potentially focus on one athlete more so than the others. And sometimes this is incredibly deliberate, and other times it's not so deliberate. But what is incredibly noticeable is that they don't necessarily perceive that they are too busy focusing on one athlete. They believe they are affecting and helping the rest of the athletes. Sometimes this can be because they believe they're helping the rest of the athletes by focusing on that one athlete. So you, effectively, if you like, the Seabiscuit. Seabiscuit was a horse that was utilized for its speed to help other horses get faster. What they didn't realise that Seabiscuit later on became a championship horse. Another thing we can potentially see with these kind of athletes, who are really used to getting all the training. You're getting all the training, all the best training, while all the others are being neglected. When you potentially go to university or move to another group, you might not necessarily be the top dog in that group. You might necessarily be affected by the Rosenthal effect yourself. And what we can potentially see is a lot of arrogance in these athletes. They are potentially very arrogant. Not necessarily all, but some. And if you're more arrogant, so to speak, and you're used to getting this training and suddenly you're not, there's a greater chance of dropout. And this is not potentially in the literature, but another way the Rosenthal effect, in my opinion, can potentially be affecting massive groups is when a coach focuses purely on one sex of athlete for whatever reason. It might be, and the most likely case is that they focus on one sex of athlete, they believe they can potentially get them to elite status. This could be because of gender stereotypes, but it could also be because they believe that it's easier to get one sex in a certain event to an elite level easier than in what it is the other sex. We are also forgetting that weaker athletes are in a weaker position, or less skilled athletes, shall we say. Not necessarily weaker athletes. They might be less skilled in certain areas, but still be relatively quick. So those athletes potentially may need more work than the athletes who are skillfully better. However, some athletes may be in multi-skilled groups, in which case they probably need to be in a better group. But if they're in a multi-level group with some athletes who aren't that really good and other athletes who are exceptionally good, then maybe that athlete does need a little bit different work, a little bit extra work, harder work, whatever, but it cannot come at the expense of the attention to the rest of the group, or at least the perceptional attention to the rest of the group. All in all, the process is about understanding and eliminating one's bias. Once we can realize that, we reflect upon our own coaching practice and understand this in practice as well as post-practice, can we then try and understand how we can improve the athlete? If we can eliminate the Rosenthal effect, or at least perceptually eliminate it amongst our athletes, we can then potentially become better coaches. So, how do we eliminate it? 1, we critically self-reflect upon our own practice. Did we give enough attention to other athletes? 2, in the next session, and in the planning of your session, because most of the time you have to plan, ask yourself the question, am I giving too much attention that is not needed to just one athlete? 3rd point, what messages are the other athletes giving us? And I'm not talking about just talking about it, but in terms of what body language. Did they get the fullest from that session? And the 4th point, ask ourselves, how can I get the best out of all my athletes? If you can answer those questions, even if you don't recognize you're suffering from Pygmalion Effect, you will at least be able to restrict it to the best you can and give your athletes the best they can get. What is often forgotten is coaching is an art form. It's not a perfect, yes, we can back it up with science and that can help our performance. And a lot of it is practical. But a vast majority of coaching is man management or women management skills. Do you have the human skills to be able to understand your athlete and be able to improve them to reach the best of their abilities? I'm Adam McCarthy. I hope you enjoyed this video from SSA Athletics. Check out our Facebook pages, and if you're in the Southend area and really fancy joining an athletics club, then maybe we're the club for you. So check out the website for that. And as always, guys, I will see you in the next one. Bye, and have a good day.